So I've had a few questions about how to make back cuts on tile. Not every tile can be used as a back cut. So this one is a ceramic. Travertine's pretty good. Most porcelains will cut pretty good. There are some lower end meaning price-wise porcelain that is not very dense, and therefore back cutting on those are very, very difficult. Usually when they crack, by the time you made your first or second cut, they'll just crack on you. And I usually go through 2, sometimes 3 before I just give up and decide I'm not going to be able to do it. Porcelain isn't very dense, not porcelain, ceramic isn't very dense, so I'm going to use a 6" by 6" ceramic to try and give you that idea. So the idea of back cutting, or at least questions that I've had, is how do I do the insert medallion or whatever that I usually put in my niche, and I usually put it on a diamond shape like this, and then I'll use whatever floor tile to kind of inset and bring together the floor back up to the wall. So in this case, literally, that's what I had going on. I'm using this as a wall tile, this is a floor tile, and because I have so much of this, I have some extra that I'm going to go ahead and do a demo on. So typically that's what you'd be looking at, but then you need the back cut done, and you can't do it from the front because the blade is rounded, obviously, and when you start coming out too far on the line, you kind of messed it up. So doing a back cut to make this pattern happen is just as simple as finding your center point, in which case most tiles are kind of marked with a center point, and this one is. And so the process is relatively easy. I don't have 2 hands, nor do I have a tape measurer, so I'm going to do this kind of by eyeball. There are lines on the back of here, so I can line up left to right, but I can't line up from top to bottom. So I'm going to do the best I can, which I'm looking at 1, 2, 3rd line, 1, 2, 3rd line. That's pretty close. That's pretty darn close. So that's about where I want it. Some tile on the back of it is kind of slippery, so you're not going to be able to use a pencil. You're going to have to use either a grease pencil of some sort or a magic marker, Sharpie, something like that. So the process is basically like this, right? I'm trying to hold the camera. Hold on, sit down here. The process is just marking your lines out, although I probably don't need to show you this, it's pretty simple. Okay. So once you have your lines marked out, I'm going to darken mine a little bit more so I can see it well. Sometimes pencil marks and water don't mix too well, and you'll lose your line as you're doing your cut. So I'll mark it just a little better than it is so I don't lose my cut. And basically there's your line. And for those of you wondering on as far as these bumping up against each other, the way I had them set on here before I marked the line, once you cut into that line, if you're actually right on the line rather than just on the inside, that line will end up giving you the little spacing that you're going to require once these are all set in, and you'll see that a little bit later. But in the meantime, I'm going to go ahead and make this cut. And let me preface also by saying some of the saws that are out there don't have a removable table. Doing back cuts for me is relatively easy because I have a type of saw that has a removable table. In other words, there's no, clear this stuff off of here. There's no rail that holds the left or the right side on, and some of the saws out there actually have a rail that make it almost impossible unless your table pushes back from the saw blade, or you have enough room between your table and the saw blade. But a lot of the tables are a little longer, and you're not going to have the room to do that. And one of the reasons I don't like the the saws that tilt up like that are on a rail that you cannot take the table off is it doesn't make it easy to do back cuts. So in this case, when I do a back cut, I take the table completely off, and that gives me the freedom to move the tile around exactly where I want it. So I'm going to show that process in just a second. Yep. So sometimes what happens, you end up with these little corners here that have little chips of tile, and it's easy to get off with either a blade like this or you can keep running it through the tile saw the way I did backwards up to the corner part. The only problem with that, you have to be really careful, because if you run the line too far, then you're going to end up with a cut line on the top here showing, and you don't have to do the whole thing over. So
I got a question if you get a chance.
and that gives you a very clean square right there. I don't know how well you can see it, and that's as easy as it gets. This particular tile is easy to work with. As I said, it's not too dense. With the harder tiles, you got to just take your time on it, and it only takes a few practice tries to get it right. Okay, this is a finished product. You could either have it that way if you wanted to, straight left and right, or you could have it the way I usually do it on a diamond type pattern. And then of course once you set in the center tile on the inset, those become diamonds as well. So that's how it works out. If for whatever reason, I'm assuming you'll be using sanded grout, and that's why I put an 1/8 of an inch line. As I said before, when you cut your line, cut it right on your pencil mark. If you do that, you're going to automatically give yourself the 1/8 inch spacing pretty much all the way around is where you want it. If you cut on the inside of the line, then it's going to be a much tighter fit, and that would be for non-sanded grout, for example. So, the blade is probably a good 1/8 of an inch thick or so, and that 1/8 of an inch goes all the way around, which gives you all the space that you need for this particular tile. And that's as easy as it gets doing a back cut. As I said, you could probably do it with the cheaper tile saws that, what are they called? I guess they're table tile saws. They sell them at Home Depot a lot. They're 150 bucks, maybe $200 or whatever. But the blade sets on top. And with those type of saws, it's not much bigger than my table right here. With those type of saws, because the blade sits on the top, it's a little more difficult to do a back cut because you're going to be coming down on the blade and waiting for that blade to come through, and then the line, of course, is going to be half the top. The line is going to have to write the line plus tax on the top of the tile, so that when you see the blade come through, and the back, of course, that you can stop when you get to this edge part, so you don't leave an extra tile cut right here. I've never tried to do a back cut on one of those type of saws, those little table saws. Although I own one, it's for usually backsplashes and stuff where I have tiny tile to cut and I don't want to bring this monster out. And I'm not really sure how you would do that on one of these tile saws, as I said, that are stuck to the rail. If you have enough room to get past your blade, either going forward or coming backward, and you can get your tile up under there, then by all means. I probably could have done it on the 6-inch tile, but on a 12-inch or a 16-inch tile, there's no possible way I could do a back cut with those type of tile cutters, wet saws, rather, as it were. Which is why I like these so much, because I can just take my table and get rid of it and do what I want to. And that's how you do a back cut with tile. And I hope that helped you out. It's fairly easy to do. A couple practice tries will have it down, pretty perfect. If you're adept to cutting tile at all, then this will come pretty easy for you.